This is Grant Peters, the HMIS Manager for the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, and welcome to the DV Client Track New User Training. Today, Lori Wood, our HMIS CE Trainer and Analyst, will be facilitating this as I drive. Lori, take it away.
Thank you, Grant. Welcome to the webinar. First, we'll take a look at the actual login screen for DV Client Track. In the username field, you will type your username, which in DV is your email address according to your user agreement. And then in the password box, you will type in your password. Once you complete those two boxes, click on Sign In. The next screen shows you the work group. You will always work in the 2020 IDV user work group, and your organization will pre-populate. Once you've reviewed those two items, please click on Use these settings. We are now in the system. Just a friendly reminder that we are working in the DV Client Track training environment today. So any information or all information that you see displayed is completely fictitious. A brief overview of DV Client Track to let you know how you can navigate between workspaces and what exactly is contained on each of the workspaces. We'll start there. When you log into the system, you will automatically be brought to the home workspace, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. The home workspace has your username and any news that the administrators of HMIS have entered for your knowledge and your review. So keep an eye on that, because we update that with training opportunities or changes to the system that you would need to know. To navigate between the workspaces, move your cursor to the box at the right of the Client Track logo with the double arrows and click. This brings you to a floating menu where the workspaces are displayed. There are 4 workspaces within the system: Home, Clients, Providers, and finally, Reports. Let's take a look at the Clients workspace, as that is the workspace you will complete the majority of your work. So click on the Clients box, and now you have moved to the Clients workspace. The system will always pull up the most recent client that you worked with when you sign in to the Clients workspace. So most recently, Grant was working on Sally Fields. You can see her name displayed at the top of your screen, her date of birth, social security number, and the client ID. The client ID is automatically assigned by the system when a client's record is created. A helpful hint for you all: when you contact the help desk, if you need something changed or revised on a client record, please only refer to the client by their client ID number. Under no circumstances should personally identifiable information be sent to the help desk. So no names, no socials, no dates of birth. Simply refer to the client using their Client Track client ID. On this screen, you see several features in the left side menu, and we will begin by looking at the Find Client feature. Anytime that you are going to enter a record for a client, you always need to search by clicking on the Find Client feature to make sure that the client does not already have a record in the system. So you click on Find Client, and then we recommend you enter 2 or 3 letters of the client's first name and last name, and then click the search button. And as you can see, the search did not find any existing clients that met that criteria. Now let's move into a client intake. To launch the intake workflow, click on Intake in the left-hand menu, and the workflow launches. At this time, the system will ask you, do you want to add a new client or use the selected client? For the sake of training, we are going to choose Add a New Client by clicking on that choice. The system will automatically ask you again to search for the client to make sure they do not have an existing record. They do not, so we will scroll down and complete the client's first name and last name. And please remember that all fields marked with a red asterisk are required data points. Those fields must be completed before moving to the next assessment, or you will receive an error message on your screen. The system knows whether you've entered a full name, a partial name, and will pre-populate the name quality field. 3 other choices that you will see in numerous drop-downs are client doesn't know, client refused, and data not collected. If choosing the client doesn't know answer, what that means is you ask the client the question and they simply replied that they do not know. The client refused option indicates that you asked the client the question and they refused to answer. The third and final option of data not collected should very rarely, if ever, be used. That is because according to HUD guidelines, when data not collected is chosen as the answer, we are saying that we did not ask the question of the client. So moving on, the next field to complete is the Social Security number. And again, the system will pre-populate according to what is entered in that field as far as the data quality choice. The alternate reference ID field is to be utilized for those clients wishing to enroll in coordinated entry and remain anonymous. More information is available on that feature in the coordinated entry training video. Continuing on, we will enter the birth date, the ethnicity, and please remember all of the information that is entered in the system is to be client disclosed. This is not information that you can enter based upon observation. In the race options, a client can choose up to 5 races to which they identify. The gender data point has several selections, so please ensure that all selections are provided to the client so they can disclose the gender they identify as. When choosing female, the pregnancy data point will automatically pop up for you to answer. That will not show when male is chosen as the gender. Next, we have veteran status. And marital status, citizenship, and primary language are not required fields, but it is helpful information if you would like to complete those fields during the intake. Then further down the screen, there's a place for their most recent address and contact information. You also have data points for their email, home phone, work phone, and message phone. Once you've completed that information, please click Finish in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I'd like to point out that as you move through the intake workflow, on the left side of your screen, sort of in the middle, the intake menu, as you complete each assessment, the assessment will then have a green button to the left with a check mark. We are now on the family members assessment. If the client has additional family members to be enrolled, you can do so by checking below the client's name in the checkbox and then adding the additional family members. For the sake of time, during this training, we will only enroll a single individual. Once the information is completed, you can click Save and Close in the bottom right of your screen. To give you more work area when entering an intake or exit or other information, you can move your cursor to the upper left part of your screen and click on the small push pin. Once it turns sideways, you can then move your cursor to any of the white area on your screen and click, and the far left menu will collapse and be hidden. Next, we are on the program enrollment screen. You will click on the drop-down in the project area and choose the project name which you are enrolling the client into. Once that choice is made, click Save in the bottom right-hand corner. Before clicking Save in the bottom right-hand corner, you will need to click the box beside the family members that you are enrolling. Now click Save. The Universal Data Assessment. This information is very important because this helps us establish whether or not a client is chronically homeless. Many of the fields pre-populate, so the first area that you will need to complete is the disabling condition. And again, this is client self-report information. Client location is pre-filled. Living situation pertains to the prior living situation. Identify the type of residence and length of stay the client had prior to arriving at your facility. We are going to choose place not meant for habitation, and then length of stay in prior living situation. Approximate date homelessness started. You can either type in the date as Grant is doing now, or you can click on the small calendar icon and use that. The following data point, regardless of where they stayed last night, the number of times the client has been on the streets, in emergency shelter, or safe haven in the past 3 years, including today. Total number of months homeless on the street, in emergency shelter, or safe haven in the past 3 years. And we'll scroll down. The health insurance assessment. Is the client covered by health insurance? If the client discloses yes, then a type of insurance must be identified before moving on. Our client receives Medicaid. Once that is chosen, you can click Save in the bottom right-hand corner. Now we're on the barriers assessment. Again, this is client-identified information. Simply check the box to the left of barrier, and it will populate each barrier as no. The client did indicate they have an existing barrier, so let's say the client disclosed alcohol abuse. Simply click on the drop-down, change it to yes, and then answer whether or not the condition is indefinite. Once those fields are completed, you can scroll down and click Save and Close. The domestic violence assessment. Has the client experienced domestic violence? Choose the appropriate answer, then scroll down and answer when the experience occurred and whether the client is currently fleeing. Then click Save in the bottom right corner of your screen. The next assessment is the domestic violence crime assessment. This is information where you enter the incident date, the abuser, the crime, the VOCA victimization category, and whether or not the client is a repeat victim. You are able to skip this assessment. However, we recommend that it be completed, if at all possible. We're going to skip and move to the next assessment. Income and sources and non-cash benefits. Does the client receive income from any source? Do they receive any non-cash benefits from any source? The expense field is available for your use, however, it is not required. Then we'll scroll down the screen, and if the client indicates that they do have income, a source of income must be identified. Once again, you can click the top box to the left of type, and it should populate everything as no. Then choose the appropriate income source. Type in the monthly amount. In the monthly amount column, Then if the client indicated they also receive non-cash benefits, you would scroll down the screen and indicate the type of non-cash benefits. Because this client indicated no, they do not receive non-cash benefits, no further selections are required on this screen. However, for the sake of training, we will change it to yes, so that you can become familiar with the view as well as the choices. So below the income source, you will see a list of non-cash benefits. Simply click on the non-cash benefits box to the left and then indicate the description as well as the monthly amount. When finished, click Save and Close. The transportation assessment is available. However, it is not required, so we will skip this assessment. The legal assessment is also available for your use. However, it is not a required assessment, and we will skip for the sake of time. In order to finish a workflow, you must click Finish at the end. Now our client is enrolled and has a dashboard. You'll see their name in the upper left-hand corner, date of birth, social security number, and the client ID assigned by the system. Scrolling down on the client dashboard, you will see the client's enrollment. Currently, they are enrolled in emergency shelter. And then below that, the case manager assignment. And then below that, services. So the next step that we'd like to go over is how to enter a case note for a client. To open the menu, go to the white box in the upper left-hand corner of your screen that contains 3 horizontal lines and click. The menu then slides open. You can click on the push pin. When it's perpendicular, the menu is pinned open. To enter a case note, on the left-hand side, move down to Client Profile, then click, and it opens a series of choices. You would click on Case Notes, and then to add a new case note, simply click on Add New. In the Regarding box, please be as specific as you can, to what the case note is pertaining to. Then moving down, in the body of the case note section, you can type your narrative. When the narrative is complete, scroll down the page, and you have the ability to also enter a service on the case note screen. So click on the default enrollment, choose the client's enrollment, then move down to the service, click on the drop-down, and select the service. The enrollment, and then units of measure, unit value, and units can be changed according to the type of service that you're logging. When finished, click Save in the bottom right-hand corner. Now you can see the case note appears on the client's case note screen. To view the case note, simply move to the left of the case note and click on the magnifying glass, and that will open the case note. Then click Cancel in the bottom right-hand corner, and it takes you back to the case note list. You can print case notes by clicking on the print button for the appropriate case note. Then you would click Print Selected. Next, let's look at Edit Client on the left-hand side. If your client has information that has changed since the initial intake, you can use the Edit Client feature to update their basic demographic information. If there were changes, you would simply type in the information, then click Save and Close. Because we are not editing this screen, we will click Finish. The next feature available that we'd like to display for you is the Client Files feature in the left-hand menu. You'll click on that. This is where you can upload documents into the client's HMIS file. For instance, Social Security card, identification, birth certificates, any legal papers, protective orders. Whatever information that you would like to upload, you can do so on this screen by clicking Add File, then going to your computer and clicking on the file you want to upload. You would click on Choose File, then give it a name, and then Save. Now let's take a look at how to add a service for a client without entering a case note. So we will click on Client Enrollments and Client Services. Then click on Services, and to add a new service, you would click Add New. This screen looks a bit different from the case notes screen where you added a service previously, so we'll walk through these fields. Click on Enrollment, choose the enrollment. Click on the grant and choose the appropriate grant. Then Service. The related crime or victimization is not required. The date will pre-populate for you, and you can change the units or unit value to match the service. There's also a small text box available under Comments if you choose to enter a brief note. When finished, click Save. Now we'll go to the left-hand menu and scroll up and click on Client Dashboard to return to the client's dashboard. At this point, if you scroll down, you will then be able to see where the two services have been added to the client record. Now we'll move back to the exit. So we are going to click on the enrollment button beside My Fake DV Shelter and click. and we will choose Exit the Enrollment. The exit workflow launches. Now we need to complete the destination field. Where is the client going when they exit? Choose the appropriate response. Exit reason is not required, but it's good information to enter. Then click Save. The Universal Data Assessment. If the client's information has remained the same since their most recent assessment, there is a shortcut available by clicking on the default client's last assessment. Once you've clicked that button, please scroll down, and the same goes for the health insurance. If there have been no changes, you can click on Default Last Insurance Status. Then click Save. On the client barriers, you would want to review to make sure that the information is still correct. If any changes are needed, simply make the changes on the screen, then click Save and Close. If no changes are necessary, click Save and Close. Income and sources, you may use the same shortcut. If the client's information has not changed, click Default Last Assessment. Then you can click Save and Close. Remember, to end a workflow, you must click Finish. Now scrolling down and looking at the client dashboard, you will see the project start date as well as the project exit date and the exit destination to the right. So this client has been entered and exited from shelter. An additional feature we'd like to show you today is the notifications function. The system has the ability to track notifications in order to make your life easier when trying to keep up with your calendar. So move to the bell at the top of the page to the right of the client ID number and click. The pop-up box then populates with the choices. For this training, we will add a notification by clicking on Add Notification. Simply fill out the information. The begin date or end date or both. And you can note the status of the notification by clicking on the drop-down. And you can also tell the system to alert you. When finished, click Save. As you can see, there is now a red circle with a white 1 in it, indicating you have a notification for this client. The last feature we'd like to show you is the paused workflows. Now, in order to see this feature, you will need to move to the Home Workspace by clicking on the icon to the right of the Client Track logo and then clicking on Home. On the left-hand menu, you'll scroll down, and in that menu beneath My Client Track, you will see Paused Operations. If you have paused a workflow, the workflow will appear on this list. To resume the workflow, you would click on the folder to the far left. To restart the workflow, you would click on the arrow. And to cancel or remove the workflow, click on the X. You should always click on Resume the Workflow, as that will take you back to the point where you initially paused the workflow. If by chance you click on Restart, then it would start the workflow from the very beginning. And that concludes our training for new users in DV Client Track. Thank you so much for attending. If you have questions, please contact the help desk at
dvhelpdesk@ihcda.in.gov. Thank you and have a great day.